Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. Now, before we begin, because in 2019, YouTube was caught data mining the information of underage users, therefore violating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, otherwise known as COPPA, they reached a settlement with the United States government, where they implemented new policy meant to dodge responsibility and scapegoat creators. Meaning I have to ensure everyone understands that this video is not meant for children. It is not targeted towards kids, it is not advertised towards kids. Doctor Who is a family show that all kids can watch. But this video, as with all the videos on my channel, may be discussing adult themes. That being said, it is the 30th of January 2021, and we are starting a look at The Bride of Peladon. Now, the Bride of Peladon this is Erimem's last story, and we're starting with part 1, which is a great story. This is written by Barnaby Edwards, who and directed by Barnaby Edwards. Barnaby Edwards is, of course, known for mostly doing direction. He actually also works on the new series, I believe, as a Dalek operator. Yeah, he's a Dalek operator, and basically is still a Dalek operator. So yeah, which is definitely interesting. But he also is an actor. He for stuff, but he also does writing, which this is the second story we've covered that he's written, though I think the first ever to be story he ever wrote, and it's a Peladon story, and okay, my one big criticism with this episode, I think I'll start with that because it's harsh, is the cliffhanger, because it's the cliffhanger is the Doctor and Perry are attacked by a creature that is Agador. Yeah, sorry, that doesn't quite work as a cliffhanger because you're doing a Peladon story in an audio drama, meaning that this is a niche market, so people have probably already seen The Curse of Peladon and know that Agador is not dangerous. Agador is like a giant puppy. Though I think it kind of surprised me because if I remember, the Agador in Curse and Monster were supposedly the last of its kind, so that's a nice surprise. But yeah, the cliffhanger just seems like a little bit of Barnaby Edwards kind of just wanting to have his fun with writing a Peladon story, and you know, in writing that Peladon story, including Agador in some way, which is, you know, obviously it makes sense that he would want to have this be you know, a part of things, even if he doesn't it doesn't fully finish, you know, that's the thing. The actual plot involves, it's actually a very interesting sort of plot, because instead of doing you know, instead of doing the story with Agador, you know, you have something a little different where the Doctor is, you know, the Doctor is in fact played up as you know, is played up as being being the doctor coming to save the day. But instead of like a joining the Federation or a minor strike, we actually have more moving away from a traditional monarchy as a little bit of the that's a little bit of the story. That's it's kind of where we get introduced to things. It's it's a little different, but it's definitely something that I think is quite fun, especially for the story's doing, because you have this new king of Peladon taking a wife from Earth, and the whole fear is that this is just going to be a political marriage, which is very, very nice for a Peladon type story, a story on Peladon. It was definitely a different sort of plot, because there is the difference here of Peladon being this far in the future. I think we're further in the future than anything. And you have ice warriors, parries with ice warriors. And reflecting back on Red Dawn, you really do get you really get a good example of the fact that the ice warriors aren't necessarily evil, and trying to kill people, but are they're here as ambassadors. And there's also like an Arcturan working with someone on Peladon, which could be the villain. Again, this is a lot of setup and a lot of putting our players in place. And really the big problem here is that cliffhanger doesn't quite work nearly as well as the writers, as Barnaby Edwards thinks it does. Mainly because listeners kind of already know, like, oh, this is Peladon, so Agador probably isn't dangerous. And in knowing that, we really get the just the sense of what's going on. But outside of that, it's actually a really good episode. Barnaby Edwards shows that he can write a decent episode. Well, even though this is his first one, even though we've got even though we've already covered one of his episodes, he actually writing he wrote. He wrote basically for 5, 6, and 8. No 7, interestingly enough, but he has done more directing, and he brings the script to life. So I'm going to have to give part 1 of The Bride of Peladon an 8 out of 10. Alright, it is the 31st of January 2021. I just finished listening to part 2 of The Bride of Peladon. This second episode is great. It's kind of actually brilliant. It's a lot better than the first. Mainly, it has better cliffhanger than the first, which was the big problem with the first episode. With Ixlair, the Ice Lord in charge, turning on Perry. Now there isn't like a Perry, it's a Perry is in danger cliffhanger. And yeah, she gets damseled, but I actually kind of think that her damseling, while not, absolutely amazing, and, always a bit annoying to see characters be damseled, is at least made up for with the fact that Perry's kind of an awesome character. Like, really, she does have the chance to be a good, interesting character. mainly because, she's allowed, um, um, she's allowed to have her own plot and have her own desires. It's because, Perry is a character, who has just this who just has these several moments of clarity, and Nicola Bryant always makes it somehow worth it. Um, there's it's just the fact that, it's Nicola uh it's Nicola Bryant having a really good time. She doesn't actually meet up with the Doctor here. They are kept separate throughout, um throughout the um just throughout the stories that she is given. um she is she's given her own plot, and it's something where you kind of get to see this character as something different than, um you know as something different than what you would expect to see from a character like this, because, well, it's Perry. Perry as a character is meant to be different, and it's just, um, it's just how different that she, has to be. Um, she's the Doctor's friend. You get to see, um, you get to see a very different sort of relationship play out, um, you know, with Perry as just sort of the Doctor's friend and really only friend, um, because that's who Perry is. While Erimem is playing the royalty card, you have Philida Law here as this character, Peladon, who's definitely coded as the villain. She's clearly coded as sort of the villain who wants to return to tradition, um, because this is sort of the idea of there's sort of the idea here of returning to tradition. But where this episode really shines is actually Yasmin Bannerman, and Christian Coulson as, Pandora and Peleus. Peleus is the king. Pandora is his, bride to be, and it's definitely one of those little, one of those tiny little things where you don't, you have it's where Barnaby Edwards shows that he understands how to write, for an arranged marriage, because this is an arranged marriage, and there is actually that examination of the fact that an arranged marriage isn't a good thing. It's they clearly don't love each other, but over the course of this episode, they become close enough to friends. Now they're not best friends, and that's not turning to love, which is fine. Um, there's just it's just one of those little things where you you have the characters work out work out their issues, realize, okay, we are kind of put in this weird situation. And it is a very weird situation because these are two characters who have to be, quote unquote, in love. There's there's just everything that the story perhaps wants to be, but it's this story that it is. It's very much playing around with something different, and of course, there's a lot of things going under the surface. Real monarchy versus sort of an elected monarchy. It's sort of like this idea of sort of this idea of democracy and freedom sort of coming into Peladon, and that possibly causing issues with big issues with the story, being something different, and as such, and doing something different with these ideas together. So overall, I'm going to have to give part 2 of The Bride of Peladon an 8 out of, a 10 out of 10, not an 8. That was part 1. Because it is perfect, and it is such an improvement over that first one, which was already really good. Alright, it is the 31st of January, 2021. I just finished listening to part 3 of The Bride of Peladon. This third episode is really, really good at... It's just good at being not just an episode, but an episode that moves things along really well and gives all the characters something to do. You have this entire story be basically about about a bunch of different things happening together because the entire story is basically a bunch of different factions with their own ideas. One thing you notice about this is that early on there is this voice that sort of is a frame, and you think, is it a ghost? Is it just characters going insane? What does this sort of voice mean? What does it represent? Who are we? Who's speaking with this ghostly voice? And it's revealed here to be Sekhmet, an Osiren. So what Barnaby Edwards really is doing here is taking the lore from Peladon and bringing in pyramids from Mars lore. And not... That isn't to say it's to, like... it's to do... it's ripping off pyramids of Mars. No, it's there's the sense that we are playing with the different stuff and different things that the story wants to be. It's instead all a lot of it is really just about who these characters are, and sort of what they, not only what they represent, but what it means to be them. Like you have Sekhmet eventually sort of trying her hardest to escape, and she kind of succeeds. She's able to get Pandora down into her crypt, where she's essentially going to try and take over her body. It's not your normal, oh, this is a thing. No, it's more of a, here's a different, here's this different story and this different thing. And the whole idea is that, royal blood was spilt, and that essentially is what allowed her, what will allow her, I should rather say, to escape. And she doesn't necessarily escape here. Like, there isn't the, yes, she's escaped, and that's not what the story does, but it does make itself a different enough thing where you have this whole idea of, okay, there are different things to be said and done here, and in different things that the story needs to be doing, and it does it really, really well. There's also this really interesting tying into being done into Erimem and her backstory, as there's the Egypt connection, which I think is actually smart. And it's interesting that Big Finish waited until the very end to actually bring in the Osirans for a companion from Egypt, from ancient Egypt, because that is very much something that would happen with this character, and Carolyn Morse plays it brilliantly. But you also have, other than that stuff, you have the story all about the Arcturan trying to invade Peladon, cause Peladon's fall, in something that is, played up as this very, very different thing. There's just, it's just one of those little different little changes where you don't you don't get you don't get everything that the story was meant to be. It's so different, and such just this amazing sort of change where you have the characters, being so different, and everything moving around, like you have Ixalier being off, you have Alpha Centauri being portrayed really brilliantly by Jane Goddard, as sort of this as the same character, but aware of who the Doctor is, and it's something that I really, really like. So overall, I'm going to give part 3 of The Bride of Peladon a 10 out of 10. Alright, it is the 1st of February 2021. I just finished listening to part 4 of The Bride of Peladon. This is our concluding episode, and the episode where Sekhmet breaks loose. And Erimem says goodbye. Those are the two big, not quite revelations, changes that occur in this episode, and they are both really important. Because this is one where let's talk about Erimem. Let's talk about Erimem's exit first, because that's the one that is the most important. Mainly because she leaves to become Queen of Peladon with Peleas, who they've both sort of created this mutual attraction to one another. It's a very, very a very, very different story because of what things are meant to be. This is sort of a different story. You already have the connection with the Osirans, basically because of because these are all things where the characters are dealing with their own problems, and bringing in the Egyptian mythology aspect really allows Erimem to have she has the sense that she is not so much in charge, but at that point where she's the one who makes the decisions. She's the one who can then live and take control of her life, which is, albeit a good life, a really good life, that she finds herself being put in, one where she can live, and I think that this is one of the stories that's great. You have also Ixlir giving his life for basically to save everything, which I think that's also a really important thing to discuss, mainly because it's this completely honorable sacrifice, all because again, all because of what the character represents. He represents getting this honorable position of his life back together. It's such an interesting little idea because of where he finds himself giving his life. And Sekhmet is defeated really well. It's done through trickery. And, you know, there's a lot of... This story becomes steeped in myth, and you really just hear what the story wants, what the story can be, and where it can go with these absolutely insane characters, all being played around by, by forces kind of beyond their control. Like, it's so it's such a different story, where where you find where you find the story ending in such a great way, where everything just works so well in this very, very different type of story. It's the ending that makes it work so well, that everyone just comes together, and you see everything that this plot can possibly contribute, and it ends so well, and Perry's goodbye to Erimem is so satisfying, and it hits a nerve. You really see this relationship end on such a note. So overall, I am going to have to give part 4 of The Bride of Peladon another 10 out of 10. That being said, we add the scores and average them out to give The Bride of Peladon a final score of 9.5 out of 10. Thank you, everybody, for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Sorry for the quickness of getting that, but I was running out of space, so please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and join me next time when we actually start a look at a trilogy of stories that is meant to basically be the 5th Doctor's final trilogy and the starting point for a Big Finish spin-off with Doctor Who, The Key to Time, The Judgment of ISSKAR.